I've worked with high-performing doctors that genuinely care about their work, are committed to their patients, and have invested years into building their careers, yet they still find themselves feeling exhausted, detached, and gradually burning out despite doing something they once felt passionate about. And I've also seen this pattern from the inside in my own experience, where sustained pressure, irregular recovery, and a lack of structure slowly erodes energy and clarity over time. You take responsibility seriously, you invest mentally and emotionally, you're trying very hard at your job, and you do not switch off easily. So that's the difference. And over time, that constant engagement without sufficient recovery creates this depletion in energy. So this is especially true in medicine. You're exposed to high stakes emotional situations, time pressures, and constant cognitive demand. You're required to be accurate, composed, and effective even when you're tired, even when you're on night shifts, even when you're short-staffed, you name it. And unlike many other professions, your mistakes carry real consequences. That creates a level of underlying pressure in you that accumulates over time. The real issue here is not just the pressure that you're experiencing, it is unprocessed pressure. So what do I mean by that? Most doctors do not have structured ways to come down from that state, from being go, go, go mode on your shifts. They finish a shift, but their nervous system is still active. They go home, but their mind is still replaying decisions. They try to rest, but their body has not switched out of performance mode. They constantly have these high expectations of themselves because that's what society sees in them. That's what their role demands, and it's hard to turn off. So eventually that fatigue changes how work feels. Things that once felt engaging and energizing start to feel heavy. Things that once felt meaningful start to feel draining. And not because your values changed, but because your capacity dropped. This is why many doctors say they feel like they're losing passion, when in reality that may not actually be the case. They still care, but they're just burnt out. So often they're not losing passion, they're losing energy. And when energy drops, everything feels harder. Focus requires more effort, patience becomes limited, small problems feel bigger, and motivation becomes inconsistent. This is a biological shift, not a moral failure. And another factor is the lack of separation between work and your own self, your self-identity. Your identity starts to feel completely merged to the role of being a doctor, to your work. And you start to lose that connection between other things in your life, like your hobbies, your fitness, your own health, and caring for yourself and your relationships. So when I talk about burnout in doctors, I'm not talking about people who chose the wrong career. I'm talking about people whose systems can no longer support the demands of the environment they are operating in. If you feel like you still care about medicine, but you no longer feel the energy that you once had, this will likely resonate. One of the biggest misconceptions about burnout is that it comes from disliking your work. But in reality, burnout often happens in people who are deeply passionate and care. Because caring means you stay engaged. So over time, this can create a situation where there's very little of you outside of that role of being a doctor. You know, being a doctor, you value, how you perform at work. You value what your colleagues think of you, your performance. You judge yourself on your performance, your competence, your responsibility, your knowledge. And you don't judge yourself on things that maybe are also very important, like your ability to wind down, your ability to relax, your hobbies, just having fun and, looking after yourself and focusing on other things. So when work becomes overwhelming, there is no external structure to stabilize you, no consistent routines, no separate identity, no space where you're not performing, and that amplifies burnout because there's no psychological recovery, not just physical recovery. So how do you fix this? The first step is understanding that burnout is not solved by taking random time off. Time off helps temporarily, but if you return to the same structure, the same systems, then the pattern is just going to repeat itself. So the solution is changing how you operate within your environment. The first priority is building decompression into your day. So even when you have long, busy shifts or even a stretch of them, You want to constantly manage the burnout within this day, not just kind of reactively at the very end or when you have time. So you want to process that in. So not just on holidays, but daily decompression. This could be short walks after your shift, structured breathing within your shift, even 1 to 2 minutes, or simply sitting in silence without stimulation. These are not small things. These are your nervous system resets. So the second priority is improving sleep quality as much as possible within the constraints of these shifts, of the schedule. But it's not about an all or nothing mindset, like, if you're on nights, you just can't sleep, or if you have these long shifts, you just can't wind down and you can't sleep. But it is about making the most of the sleep that you can get, and there's a big opportunity to optimize that, and that's going to make a massive difference when you're already kind of short on your sleep. So you want to make sure you go to sleep fully, wind it down. You don't want to be thinking about things. You don't want your heart rate to be high because you're still in go mode. You want to fully wind down. So consistency, light exposure, reducing stimulation before sleep is all going to help this, and it's going to make a significant difference over time if these become habits. And the third priority here is reintroducing physical training. And again, that's not about extreme sessions in the gym or long runs, but it's about what can you do even when it's hard, that's going to make you feel better, going to wind down, going to put you in a bit different state to give you that separation from work. So training is one of the most effective ways to regulate stress, improve mood, and rebuild energy. So it does not need to be perfect, it needs to be consistent. And the fourth priority here is rebuilding life outside of medicine. So even small elements, training, hobbies, time with people, and structure that feels yours. Autonomy is a massive thing, because if you're constantly working a rota or a shift, you don't feel like you have the freedom or the autonomy to be yourself, to do things you want. So you want to exercise that autonomy. That's going to give you that sort of energy back, because you feel like life is in your control. So the fifth priority here is removing unnecessary load. So not everything in your life needs to be optimized at once. Often as doctors, we are very guilty of being optimizers. We want to optimize our career, be the best doctors we can, be the safest doctors we can, have the most knowledge. And we apply that principle to other parts of our life as well. So when we go into training, to fitness, to health, we want to optimize that as well. And that's great, but if it's not effective, and if you're treating everything in your life as just optimizing, then it can be very demanding. The pressure is very high. You become a bit of a perfectionist. So you want to focus on the highest leverage things that result in changes. So sleep, recovery, movement. Focus on the simple things, not everything at once. And I learned this through experience as well. So there was a period where I was pushing hard, not just at work, but outside of work. And I thought, if I pushed hard at running, at the gym, at being healthy, then this is going to help me be better at work. It's going to make me feel less burnt out. But it doesn't work like that. So what changed for me was not reducing the ambition, though. It was rebuilding systems that supported that ambition. And once those systems were in place, work became easier again. Clarity returned, energy stabilized, and the experience of work seemed to improve dramatically. So if you feel like you're burning out, you're not alone, and the question is not whether medicine is the problem. The question is whether your current systems can support the demands of your current environment, the medical environment. And with the right systems in place, the experience completely changes. And if you want help implementing these systems faster with someone who's done it before, you can book a link for a call where I can help you. I will see you on the next one.